This episode is sponsored by EnviroClean Scotland.
Delivering innovative drainage, industrial and environmental solutions. Find out more at evcsl.com or call them on 01355 268 282. And we're back with another episode of the Let Me Be Frank podcast with myself, Simon Houston, Frank McAvennie, and we were going to call this a bit of a West Ham crisis episode. And then they go and win at the weekend.
Yeah, so we have to do that every weekend.
Aye, so with this, you decided if we're going to have a West Ham special, who better than your old sparring partner Tony Cottee to join us? Tony, how are you?
How you doing, chaps? Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. It's
nice to get you on again, Tone.
Feeling a wee bit better about life after the Newcastle result, or is it still generally fairly miserable?
Well, I think it's still early days for West Ham, and obviously it was a fantastic 3 points. I'm just saying to you off air, I was really disappointed with Newcastle. I thought they was particularly poor yesterday, but you can only beat what's in front of you, and it was a wonderful result. But I think that was the desperate position that you referred to the West Ham were in. The fact that even if they beat Burnley at the weekend, I think if they beat them 1-0, they still don't get out of the bottom three. So obviously West Ham have had a really poor start. But, good 3 points against Newcastle. If you beat Burnley, then everything will look a lot rosier for the club.
Yeah, because Burnley at the moment are they just a point or so ahead of West Ham?
3 points ahead.
3 points ahead, sorry. Yeah, a win ahead. Yeah. Aye. So if they lose, doesn't bear thinking about, does it?
Well, no, it doesn't, but that's the way West Ham have been. I mean, I was surprised that I obviously didn't see the game live, but I seen it after it, and I thought, my God, it was such a change to see Nuno playing all the players in their own position.
It does help Frank, doesn't it? I done a tweet the other day, and I was a bit sarcastic, but I just said, football is such a simple game, as you know, Frankie, and but you've got to play your players in their best. It's like asking me or you to play a left or right back or something. You can't play in the wrong positions. And to ask a young kid like Ollie Scholes, who is a left back, and he was asking him to play at right back, and then you've got the player of the season from last year, which is Wan-Bissaka, and he's playing at left back, and it just didn't add up to me. And other decisions, not playing with a centre forward, drives me mad. Yeah. So just play your best team and play your best players, really.
Well, I realised, I noticed that, Tone, when I went on loan to Swindon for a bit near the end of my career, and the strikers got injured, and then all of a sudden when I went to get fit, so John Gorman said to me, look, we don't want to have you here not play, so we play in midfield. And I thought, I played 4 years in midfield at St Mirren. I went into midfield, honest to God, Tone, they were running by me. Honestly, I was like, oh, where are you going? If you've not played in that position for such a long time, and I had played there for 4 years, and I struggled. We played Newcastle, funny enough, and we got battered 6-1 or something because Beersley and that was running away from me.
Frank, you do what you're good at with football. You play to your strengths as a footballer. I had a similar thing as a 15-year-old when I was at West Ham as a kid and played in the Youth Cup semi-final, and they put me on the right wing, and Frank, it was the only time I ever played on the right wing. I was so bad, it was ridiculous, and they ended up substituting me. But I think they realised that you've got to, if you've got someone who's a talent who can play in a specific position, you've got to play them in those positions. Asking anyone, particularly in the Premier League nowadays, it's so competitive. There's a lot of good players. You can't play players out of position.
No.
You can maybe get away with one, but, Nuno effectively was playing three out of position and no centre forward, as I said. So that was why West Ham lost against Leeds and Brentford.
So not being a West Ham aficionado like you guys, I did a bit of my research over the weekend, and I didn't really quite appreciate just how many issues there are there, as far as what the fans are protesting about. But obviously, the one thing that keeps coming through and everything I'm reading is just the switching to the London Stadium has just killed so much of the atmosphere, and the identity seems to have kind of disappeared a little bit. Fans are so far away from the pitch.
They even changed the badge and the name. I mean, I just think I thought it was a terrible. Because I thought that stadium, at the end, when we played, it was brilliant, but at the end, it was a good stadium. You could have built on that, Tone. I thought you could have built on that to get 50,000. And I think the whole infrastructure round about Green Street and round about the stadium was brilliant. I mean, and the people, they've all lost their livelihood. They've all lost their livelihood round there now. And it was supposed to go with them to the new stadium, but nothing. It couldn't be further from the truth, can it?
I think the thing with it, Frank, and when football clubs move, and we all understand why
Yeah.
they move. There've been some fantastic clubs that have moved. My old club, Everton, just moved from Goodison Park. Arsenal moved from Highbury. Tottenham obviously moved sort of literally half a mile to get to their stadium. So the clubs have done it, but I think where the issues are for the West Ham fans, and of course, when they was winning the Conference League 2 years ago, people aren't moaning because you're winning the trophy. But when you make the start to the season that we have, then people pick up on things. And the bottom line is West Ham moved from, as you say, Frank, a fantastic football stadium that we played our football at. It was a great atmosphere. And West Ham moved to an athletic stadium. And they're the only club that I know, certainly in English football or even Scottish football, that have gone from a football stadium to an athletic stadium. The only other club that's done it is Manchester City. But Manchester City went to the Commonwealth Stadium, and that stadium was always going to drop a tier and make it into the fantastic football stadium it is. And that's where the fans have got the problem. It's not the fact they moved, it's the fact they moved into an athletic stadium. And as you know, Frankie, you're so far away from the pitch. You need binoculars, didn't you, sometimes?
Still got that big hole with a carpet over it. I mean, it's like huge. And it's just embarrassing. I mean, problem with me, Tone, with the board, like, me, I don't really mind the board that Sullivan and Brady. I don't think they should be running football. But that's another thing. I just think the promises that were made, that you can't promise people something and not even try and deliver. I mean, okay, we won the European. That's what they'll come back with. Won the European. But they're calling people. They don't even call fans now. They call them customers.
The matchday experience seems to be, and the ticket pricing's a big issue as well. But the concessions been removed too for kids and OAPs, and there's also a feeling of trying to attract tourist fans too. And that's something that's going to affect the atmosphere as well.
The boys have got the ump. I was talking to some of the boys on Friday when I was down there, and they were saying it's embarrassing when you're turning around, you're seeing different people beside you, and you grow up at football club. It's always just the same people beside you. Growing up, we've all got the same ticket. He says, and all of a sudden, there's different people there. There's different families beside you every game because they're spending money and they're selling their tickets.
Pictures and
more interested in eating popcorn and all that kind of stuff than watching the game.
I think that happened, Frank, didn't it? When they done the sales for the stadium, it wasn't. The famous chicken run, obviously at Upton Park. It wasn't like everyone in that chicken run was given a designated stand at the new stadium, and so everyone in the chicken run goes to the new chicken run at the new stadium. That wasn't the case. Everyone was just scattered everywhere, and you could literally walk into the club shop in Stratford and say, "Well, I've been to a couple of West Ham games over the last 20 years. Can I buy 4 tickets, please?" And of course they go, "Oh yeah, that's great. You can become a season ticket holder and you buy the 4 tickets." But of course, you're not really a West Ham fan, and really all you want the tickets for is when you're playing against Man United and Liverpool and Tottenham, etc. And that's where you get all the problems with it. You're not sitting next to the same guy that you sat next to for the last 30 years. You're sitting next to different people, and it doesn't help the atmosphere. It really doesn't. But I think that was a problem that goes back to 10 years when they was actually selling the tickets.
Well, you've been back to being a proper supporter. You've got your own season ticket now. I mean, that's ridiculous. That in itself is ridiculous, but I know you don't mind, but that in itself that you have to buy a ticket is ridiculous.
I think it's admirable.
Well, admirable, but it's ridiculous that he's got to do that after the service that he's gave to West Ham. It's ridiculous.
Well, obviously, Frank, as I know you're born and bred a Celtic fan, and as you know, I'm born and bred a West Ham fan. So, for me, I don't mind. I'd rather not pay, obviously, but if you have to pay, you pay, and you go along, and I'll go with my mates. And the best part about the games this season, Frank, has been sitting in the pub before the game having a few pints, because you go to the match and it's just been awful. Yesterday was a rare example. It's the first home game West Ham have won in the league since February. So that's a long time. That's 9 months without watching them win a game. So, it was well overdue. But I love the experience of going as a fan because, first and foremost, I'm not a player. I didn't play for West Ham and then go, do you know what? I think I support the club. I was born in West Ham and I was raised as a West Ham fan, so that's my club.
That stat really jumped out at me that before the weekend they'd lost their last 5 home league games for the first time since 1931.
Oh.
I mean that's pretty grim.
But what about there's games in there that you should have won? I mean,
But do you find, is the atmosphere, obviously there was a big boycott at the Brentford match, I think 20,000 seasons ago, 20,000 fans didn't turn up, so it was obviously quite a successful protest and boycott.
They've sold tickets to the foreigners.
I know, yeah, so yeah, but I mean, but clearly the atmosphere would have been very, very different.
Tony, I don't know, is
it toxic though? Is it quite toxic? Can Sullivan kind of walk through the car park or whatever? I mean, I take it he can't, no?
I wouldn't imagine it could.
I think the fans' issues, let's make it quite clear, the fans' issues aren't with West Ham United Football Club. They are with the owners and the board of directors, and they're just trying to make their voices heard. And you mentioned the Brentford game. There was a protest. There was a sit-down protest after the game yesterday. But of course, where West Ham had won, perhaps you didn't have as many protesting as you would have done. And there's a further protest coming next weekend against Burnley, and that goes back to the game 7 years ago where the fans were running on the pitch and throwing things into the director's box, etc. So there still will be the protests, but the protests are purely aimed at particularly David Sullivan and Karen Brady. And and I don't blame the fans. I think as long as it's peaceful, I think they should be allowed to protest and make their feelings clear. What else can they do? Because if the board aren't listening, and as Frank says, calling them customers, what else are they meant to do?
This Burnley match is absolutely huge, isn't it? So currently a point ahead of Forest, 5 points ahead of Wolves, who could have a new manager and fairly soon, and you can see it always brings a bounce too. So
they've got a boy. Is it Gary O'Neill going into Wolves? Is he?
I think he's got a chance, Frankie. Yeah, I mean, obviously he was there before and he done a good job. But they needed to make a change. Wolves have been particularly poor, not won in the first 10 games. And then of course Forest have also changed their manager twice, and they're in the bottom three. West Ham have changed their manager, and it just goes to show you, with that Premier League, you get 6 games nowadays, and if you don't get a result after 6 games, you're under pressure.
On the subject of managers, so your old pal Martin O'Neill back at Celtic at the age of 73. Is age a barrier to being a football manager? Yeah,
well, Tony played under him. You played under him at Leicester, didn't you?
Three years under him, Frank. Listen, I love Martin. He was, he really helped me in towards the end of my career, where I had those three great years at Leicester. But Martin is a very, very clever guy. And the one thing I would say about Martin is he's never really, really been a coach, as in getting on the training ground and tactically doing stuff. Frank, that's not been what he's been good at. What Martin is very, very good at is motivating players. He'll pick the right team and he will motivate those players. I think you've seen it. They've had 2 great results already. Pretty certain I think they're playing in Europe, and then they've got a league game coming up. So, you will see Celtic improve. You will see them get good results. But what he'll do, he will allow the likes of Sean Maloney and the other 2 lads. I know you'll know their names, Frank.
Fotheringham,
they played under Martin, didn't they? So Martin will get those 3 guys to do the coaching, and Martin will go into that dressing room before a game, and particularly at half time, and he will get his point across. He will you want to go to war for Martin. That's the best tribute I can pay him. You sit in that dressing room, he does an inspirational speech, and you want to go out and play for him. And I haven't seen the 2 Celtic games, but I'm guessing you would have seen a Celtic team fighting a lot harder.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you were following the story towards the end of Brendan Rodgers' tenure, but he famously kind of compared the squad
Honda
Civic.
Which, I mean, can you imagine Martin O'Neill saying that about the boys that he's playing for him? It would never have happened in a million years.
No, but Martin would call you a lot worse, but he would do it to your face, and he'd do it in the dressing room. He wouldn't come out in a press conference and say something about his players. He's very, very protective of his players, but trust me, if you ain't trying or you're not doing what you should be, he will give you the biggest rollicking you've ever had in your life in that dressing room.
Doesn't mean changing.
You will want to play for him, Frank. You'd love to have played for him, because he would have been he would have inspired you and got you charged up and going out and running through brick walls. That's the type of manager he is.
You told me a story about him, if you can remember it. You were at Leicester and you were going somewhere, and he stopped at the Moors.
Yeah. Yeah, he's fascinated with history, like criminal history and that. And I think he was playing at Sheffield Wednesday or something, and he diverted the bus to go over the Yorkshire moors to see where,
Myra Henley and so
like the Moors murderers or something. All the lads are just playing cards and not really bothered about where we're going. But Martin was really engrossed in it. He was down the front looking at all what was going on. So, he's a different character, Frank. He's a very, very clever man. But he will do at Celtic what he's good at doing. He won't go in there and try and do coaching or things that he's not capable or doesn't want to do. He will do what he's good at, and I'm pretty certain if they stick with him, because they might not. I know you've got the likes of Robbie Keane being linked to Bellamy and others and that, but if they stick with Martin, what he will do is put the sort of the roots in place, if you like, for the next manager, and perhaps work. Sean Maloney might be the answer to the problem.
I don't know if Sean's ready for it yet, but
you can learn under Martin, though, Frank, can't you? I'm not saying now, but I'm saying give him 2 seasons if you like. Learn under Martin and then be ready when it's time.
Even if he stayed to the end of the season, but then how are you going to do it if they're going to give it to Sean, then it might be a good thing, because then Sean can pick players for January coming in.
Yeah, completely. And also, it's all this cliche in the world, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if they bring a new manager in during the winter, during the international break, and then Celtic lose their next match, everyone's going to say, "Well, why did you mess around with Martin O'Neill and Sean Malone were doing fine?" So they've got whoever's making the decision. We still don't really know. Michael Nicholson or whoever it might be. Has a wee bit of an issue there. I suspect they're just going to sit tight and let Martin O'Neill potentially win the League Cup, get into New Year, but beat Rangers again, and then everything in the garden will be rosy.
Everything in the garden, yeah. So we heard.
But on the subject of Martin O'Neill, he used to go into court cases and sit in the back of the court for 2 weeks watching murder trials. He's obviously got a real analytical brain. And kind of,
Or he's got a warped brain.
I saw Martin. He done the Bobby Moore Golf Day for us, Frank. I know.
Oh, did he?
He done that in September for us. So he was great, Martin, and always in good form. But as I say, I personally, this is not obviously my club, but I think if I was the Celtic owner, then I would certainly be looking at trying to get Martin in play for the rest of the season, and then just slowly take your time to get the right appointment.
Even remain there as some kind of a figurehead.
Of course, but he's not going to be there. He's not the 53-year-old that he was 20 years ago, obviously. So you've got to bear that in mind. Once you get into your 70s, you're only going to have a relatively short life as a manager. But tap into his experience. The one thing really annoys me, Frank, I'm sure it will you as well, is that these people, these players or managers, they give such great service to football clubs, and then they get rid of them. And they don't tap into their knowledge. You've got someone like Tony Adams. Well, why is he not involved at Arsenal? And I don't get where these great players, these great managers, and we just sort of let them drift out of football and don't tap into their knowledge. Celtic have almost hit a jackpot because they've got someone who was so good for the club 20 odd years ago. Tap into that knowledge and, get him to advise and help them and get the club back where it should be. Celtic should be playing in the Champions League, not every season, but they should be pushing to get into it every season. And that's the ambition.
Fans are the same as you. They want to get in the Champions League, and they want to compete. They know they're not going to win it yet.
Yeah, of course.
I would never say it's impossible because they've done it before. But to get and compete in the Champions League, that's what Celtic want. That's what the fans want. Not to get embarrassed.
Or to get in the Europa League and win the Europa League, Frank, because if you do that, you have the journey. I know Rangers got to the final, didn't they, a couple of years ago? You can have the glory of the journey. If you win the final, then you qualify for the Champions League anyway.
Well, that's what Martin done. He got us to Seville in 2003.
Yeah, there you go. There might be a nice bit of symmetry with that. Martin O'Neill coming back and righting the wrongs of Seville.
Yeah, we'll see.
And Celtic winning the Europa League in May. Are we getting ahead of ourselves?
Getting ahead of ourselves, yeah.
Now, this obviously...
We've won 2 games and we're going to win
we've got Midgetland tonight. This is Thursday, by the way, even though we're recording this a couple of days ago. Try to get your head around the timeline.
Yes.
So as we speak, things might change in the next couple of days before this episode goes out, but Brendan Rodgers, I'd be interested if we'll see him popping back up down south, or whether he might be going somewhere.
Yeah, what do you think?
Warmer.
I think he might go to. I think he might go to Saudi. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I think he has been linked with the Wolves job as well, Frank.
Yeah.
So, listen, I like Brendan. I met Brendan. I was on holiday in Dubai a few years back. I met him, and he was lovely. I had a great chat with him, and he seemed a really nice guy.
Nice guy.
Funny enough, I did meet him when he was manager at Leicester, and he done a really good job at Leicester. Won the FA Cup, of course. So, I know he had his issues towards the end of his spell at Celtic and that, but there's no doubt, and he is a really good manager. And there is someone that it might not necessarily be the Premier League; it could be a Championship club, or he could go abroad. But I think he definitely will have. People will definitely be after Brendan Rodgers.
I would think so because he wins, and the first 2 years, for some reason, he seems to fall the last year of his contract sort of a thing, he seemed to fall away a wee bit.
What are you suggesting, Frank?
No, well, maybe he's just not. Maybe when he's talking with the board and they're not giving him, maybe say you're not staying, so they're not giving you any money. I think what's happened to Celtic, that's what's happened to Celtic.
There was conspiracy theorists suggesting that he was sabotaging things to make a point.
No, I don't think Brendan would do that. I don't think anyone in football would do that.
Throwing that young boy Dane Murray in at Tynecastle, I'm not suggesting he was sabotaging it, but what was he thinking about? The young
the boy Donovan as well. What happened to him?
And also, but having Callum Osman not even looking at him, and all of a sudden Anil comes in, immediately says, right, there's a player there, get him into the team, scores against Rangers a semi-final, and it's, as I said to you earlier, it's a bit like locking yourself out of the house and not realising you've got the keys in your pocket all the time.
Well, the problem is, Tony, I don't know what you would think, but they've now got, 2 weeks ago we were screaming we've not got our centre forward. Now we've got 2 young kids who are scoring. And instead, I don't know, maybe Martin will try and get the 2 of them in the team, because the 2 of them are.
Well, he always played a 3-5-2. That was his thing. He always stuck to that.
I'd love him to play the 2
That
boys.
was what he played at Leicester. When I was at Leicester, I played up front of Emil Heskey, and we played the 3-5-2, and it's a system that Martin believes in, he trusts in. And, Frank, I'm the same as you. Why not play 2 up front? We have great times as a partnership, but it makes it so much easier if you're playing up front with someone. And it also gives you more options. If you're a defender or a midfield player, you've got 2 options to hit instead of 1. So I'm really hoping it's a phase that football's going through where you play 1 up front, or you play the false number 9 and all that sort of stuff. I'm hoping that eventually someone will be brave enough to play 2 up front, and it will come back into fashion, because it just gives you more opportunities.
Well, Leicester done it and won it. They played Vardy and Mahrez, and the boy, is it Mahrez?
Mahrez, yeah.
And he just kept dropping deep. But they played the 2 up front.
But it would be interesting because as Martin O'Neill has been really, really kind of, he's been stuck on that 3-5-2 thing. And it might solve the kind of Kieran Tierney issue a wee bit as well, because we've seen Scotland playing Tierney as the left side of a 3 at the back as well.
I think I could be talking. I know it's Celtic, but we're talking about it. But he's got a boy in loan that I think he should bring him straight back. And he will. The guy called Naroski, he got 8 games for Celtic, and he never put a foot wrong. And for some reason, Brendan didn't like him because he's not got. He had 2 left footers, or two right footers. And he wouldn't put him in because he didn't want to. Oh, that's kind of nonsense, And he put the boy on loan, and he's a Polish international, the boy.
Yeah.
So I think everyone at the club
players don't get on with managers sometimes. Do they? A little fallout with a manager, and then he don't like you, and all of a sudden you're chucked out on loan somewhere. But I don't know, but I'm guessing that Martin, although he probably would have kept an eye on Celtic, he won't know the ins and outs.
No, of course
he'll be relying, as I say, on the free coaching staff, and they possibly will be turning around and saying, "Hold on a sec, we've got a lad who's out on loan. Let's get him back and have a look at him. We might be able to fit him into the team." So if you've got assets, you've got to use your assets, and that's why it's probably coming back to what we were saying. Don't change Martin, just keep him in the position maybe for the rest of the season. Then you get him to have a look at all the different scenarios and get the players back, and just try and do it. And if you only had Martin for 4 or 5 weeks, and all of a sudden the new manager comes in, he might not play the 2 young boys up front. He might not want to do the things, and then the players just get even more confused. That's all that happens. And all of a sudden the season's finished, you haven't won a trophy, and everyone's moaning. You need stability at a football club, and you need to put those foundations in place, and that's what Martin O'Neill will do.
Well, the big thing I've noticed in the last couple of games, people are playing with a smile on their face. Something that I've not seen for a while. And you know what that means, Tone. Me and you is such good fun when we're playing. I mean, it was embarrassing because I got a letter the other day that it was just saying, "Did you enjoy yourself as much as what you were looking at, as if you enjoyed yourself?" And I was saying, "Yeah, we did." It was good fun. But so hopefully that's good. So, what do you reckon about West Ham, and how do you think we're going to do?
Well, I think we'll know more. Perhaps if we'd have had the conversation this time next week, Frankie, we probably would know a lot more about where West Ham are. Fantastic 3 points against Newcastle, but their day was so bad it was hard to judge whether this is a turning point for West Ham. I think Burnley will come to town. Scott Parker, of course, in charge, the old ex-West Ham player. He'll be wanting to come and, sort of prove a point to people. And he was linked with the West Ham job as well before Nuno got it. So, he'll be wanting to put on a good show. And Burnley, I think the good thing about the Premier League this year is that the 3 teams that come up Burnley, Sunderland and Leeds, I think they're all going to have a go, Frank. I think last year was so poor from the three promoted teams. What was it? Leicester, Southampton, I can't remember the other one, but they just rolled over and they was relegated by February. It was just really, really poor. But, Burnley are well organised. Defensively, they're good. And they will come to the London Stadium and make it really hard for West Ham. It wouldn't surprise me if it ends in a draw, Frank, because it's one of those games. And I know it's early in the season, but it's one of those games you can't really afford to lose the game, because it either brings West Ham right back alongside Burnley, or if Burnley win, they've got a 6-point gap over West Ham.
And I hate to bring this up, but have you looked at West Ham's fixtures after Burnley?
Not good.
Bournemouth away, Liverpool at home, Man United at home, Brighton away, and then Villa.
The big games, West Ham's tend to take it on board. I mean, the big games I wouldn't be too concerned about, because that can go any way. Like Man United and Liverpool. If it's the same as when we played, we just wanted to play the big teams.
Yeah, I think the difference just at the moment, Frank, is just like, not being funny, but games against Man United and Liverpool, they take care of themselves.
Of course they do.
They're not going to sort of dictate where your league position is, really, because they're bonus games. If you beat Liverpool, happy days. You win at Old Trafford, happy days. But, when you're at home to Burnley, at the moment, as things stand, when you're in that bottom three, that is a must-win game. You have to beat Burnley, because they're the games. If you win those games, then you start to push up the league and get away from that bottom three, And West Ham, like any club in the Premier League, they cannot afford to get relegated financially. It'd be an absolute disaster for the club.
A wee question, it's off of skills here, but I was thinking about it. I was watching West Ham last week and I thought, what would we do to our defence?
I don't know about at the moment, Frank. You're 66, so
even now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not nice to say, but in our heyday, you'd love to have played against the current West Ham defence, because it's not been good. It was a lot better yesterday, a lot better yesterday, and perhaps
even a goal, though, Tone.
Once Nuno gets a chance to work with the players, maybe it will improve. But I mean, I don't think defenders, they don't really defend nowadays, Frank, do they? They're more interested in playing the ball out and back, and defensively, I don't think there is that many good defenders about.
What are you doing down there, Frank?
I think I found a leak.
You have found a leak?
Yes.
Wow. Well, I know the very people that can sort that out for you. Our new sponsor, EnviroClean Scotland, are perfect dealing with leaks, blockages, anything to do with your drains. They're brilliant, aren't they?
They're very good. You can't miss them. Huge trucks.
Big presence. You see their vans and their tankers everywhere. But the important thing is they don't just deal with the massive operations, the big industrial units, factories and so on. They also deal with domestic issues as well.
Small leaks.
Frank's found a wee leak. Blocked sinks, overflowing gutters, grease traps. They'll sort it quickly with modern kit and properly trained teams. So it's not just huge factories and large industrial drains. They'll come out to your house as well. No job is too small. Whether it's a stubborn blockage or a messy overflow, EnviroClean gets it fixed without stress. It's a fast, reliable service, and they've been keeping Scotland flowing smoothly since 1997. And get in touch if you do have any kind of small drainage problems, whether it's a domestic house or a small business as well. Or maybe if you're a football manager and there's a leak in the dressing room. There's been a few of them in your dressing rooms over the years, Pronounce.
A few leaks, yes.
But EnviroClean Scotland. So if you want to find out more, visit evcsl.com. And Frank, what should people tell them?
Tell them Frank sent you.
I want to talk about you two in your heyday, but before we do that, just a reminder to everyone, please to follow us, hit subscribe, get the numbers up. I'm very pleased with the numbers we've been getting recently. Great. Fantastic.
Really and it's good. Free.
And it's free to hit subscribe. That's what you need to do.
Too much free in this world.
And also, get in touch if you want to win vouchers, 50 quid vouchers for Mr. Sings India.
Brilliant. We've got a couple of names. Have they come back?
Well, I'll talk to you about that later. We've reached out to some winners and you haven't got in touch yet to give us your contact details. So get in touch. Check your
inbox.
Messages in your inbox as well. But so do that. Hit subscribe and hit follow and follow us on social media. But back to the mid 1980s and the halcyon days when West Ham were nearly winning the league, and you guys were scoring loads of goals. Tony, when you were on this show before, you said something really interesting, that it wasn't like you didn't think you were going to win, but it was by how many.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that must have been a great feeling going into games.
But it was something. I played 20 years as a player, and it was the only season, I mean, literally the only season where, you know, one side got going. Frank started scoring from the first couple of games onwards, but it took me a while to get going. But once I started scoring, you know, Frankie just mentioned, we had a smile on our face, and we went into the games, and me, in the dressing room before the game, me and him would look at each other, and we knew that we was going to score a goal, and we knew that we was going to win a game. Obviously, we didn't score in every game, and we didn't win every game, but mentally, to have that feeling, it was just the most amazing feeling to be going out onto a football pitch and just having the confidence. And it didn't matter whether it was, you know, there was a very good Liverpool team, very good Everton team, good Man United team. It didn't matter who we was playing, and if we was playing away from home, the confidence in that team that we had. And we've got a big celebration coming up next year. All 18 of the boys of 86, you know, we're all still alive, and it's 40 years ago, you know, but we'll get together, and we had such a good team spirit as well. And we're going to have a really good night celebrating that. But, you know, playing up front with Frank that season was just, you know, it was just the best season of my life. And, you know, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it was just great to play with a smile on your face.
We got into trouble a couple of times. We actually had a bet. We won't go into it, but we had a bet to see who would score the best goal.
That was your idea, Frank.
That was my idea. It was, and Tony hit 18-yard top corner, and I'm thinking, how am I going to beat that? And anyway, I lobbed the keeper, and I thought I've won it. You know, I chipped him, got the 9-iron out, and hit it over him, and then John Lyle found out something was up and made a few inquiries and fined the two of us.
Oh, really? For bet?
See the things I get involved with when Frank's involved. There's always like a bet or something.
But it was good fun.
You get in trouble.
Me and him were always, I remember, we were always going down Green Street. People say, you can't get down Green. It was terrible to try and get to the game. Me and him were always late. And we used to fly down outside, and I used to see him coming down the other road, and I used to try and get in front of him, and the police were like that, on you come. But we're always late going to the game. But the coppers, everyone in the police round about Green Street, they were all West Ham supporters. Everyone that worked in the Upton Park, they were all West Ham supporters. Everyone in the surrounding areas. That's the biggest problem I've got now with the stadium, where it is, and people round about. David Moyes, I was out for a drink with David, and he was saying sometimes he turned up at the game and the people didn't know who he was. And he's a manager, you know, and he's a manager, and he had to explain who he was. You know, that's not right.
That's crazy, isn't it?
It's not right in any walk of life, never mind the football world. So, you know, it was great when we played in Upton Park. It was, I know we're going back, but it was magnificent, wasn't it, Tony?
Yeah, it was, Frank. Yeah, it was just a proper old school football stadium, and like I say, like, you know, Goodison Park. You know, you can name them. There's so many great grounds that aren't with us anymore, which is sad. You know, I suppose it's modern day football, isn't it? You know, you're progressing. It's the 21st century. I understand all that, but you know, those memories for me, not just as a player with you and other great players, Frank, but as a fan. You know, to grow up following West Ham and being in that, you know, a bit like what it would have been, you know, for Celtic in the good old days with the terracing, etc., and not, you know, you ain't got a roof on your head and things like that, you know. But very, very primitive and basic, but something really, really special about it.
Here's the thought. I mean, it's unthinkable of West Ham getting relegated. I don't even want to consider that. But listening to the radio this morning, there was a wee debate about that might be what it takes in order for Sullivan to sell up.
I don't think he will sell up. No, I don't even think if they go to this. I think something's going to happen like that for Sir David to sell, but they're just making decisions. I mean, they're only paying $2.5 million a year, and they keep pleading poverty. You know, and I'm not happy with what's happening, because it's, you know, I love the club, absolutely love the club. They were wonderful to me, and I just feel for people, and there's a lot of people that I know lost their jobs and all that kind of stuff too, and that doesn't sit right with me. You know, and I think people that can't breed, they don't have a heart. They just get rid of them. I know it's a business, but sometimes you think, you know, you've got to have a wee bit of, these people have worked here all their life. you know. And
do you? So you were discussing it earlier. You're not really involved in a professional capacity at West Ham. Just purely a fan, then, Tony. Yeah, you're not doing any work for the media side.
I just go as a fan. Yeah,
and I suppose that does allow you as well to speak quite freely too, though, and get your thoughts out there. And whenever you've been interviewed in situations like this, for example.
I mean, I don't particularly get on well with David Sullivan, Karen Brady at the moment, which is fine. You know, they don't particularly like me. I don't particularly like them. It just is what it is, and you know, that's how it is in life sometimes. But I go to the games. It gives me an independence, if you like, and I can do a tweet or Instagram or whatever it might be and say what I want. And you know, but when I do that, I don't do it to just criticise for the sake of it. I try and do it from a fan's point of view, and you know, come back to what I said at the start. You know, playing players in the right position, etc. And that, you know, you try and I know I played football, but I'm tweeting almost as a fan, and you know, you just get frustrated if you go. I'm sure it's been frustrating being a Celtic fan this season, you know, and a Rangers fan, of course. You know, whoever you support, you have those times where you're so frustrated, and you know, that's just how I get as a West Ham fan. But yeah, we'll see. You know, if there ever is a change of ownership, yeah, of course, I'd love to work for the club. I'd love nothing more. You know, I have done for them in the past, and you know, hopefully, I will do in the future. But as things stand, and you know, I agree with Frank. You can't really see too much changing at the moment. But the one thing you can say is, if West Ham were to get relegated, it affects so many people at the club. You know, the people that work at the training ground, the people that work at the ground. You know, your scouts and your coaching staff, and you know, all those guys that are in a job at the moment. If West Ham get relegated, the money's not there to pay those people. You know, the players move on. If you're lucky enough to be worth anything in the transfer market, you move on and go to another club. But you know, if you're on the ground staff at West Ham and you get sacked and you know you lose your job, what you know, where do you go? You might give them 30 years service to the club. You know, it's really hard when people don't realise when Premier League clubs get relegated. The ripple effect for people that work at the clubs is horrendous. It really is.
Right.
I don't know too many players that would get moved on to be honest with you, at West Ham at the moment, the way they're playing. I mean, Paquet is a talent. You see him a lot more than me, but when I see him, I think, wow, as a striker, he'd love to play.
He was our best player yesterday, Frank. He makes things happen. You know, he's a really top player. You've got Bowen, of course. Somerville's a good player. You know, they've got in the attacking department, they've got some decent players, West Ham. It's just defensively and in the midfield, they've been lacking this year. But, you know, there's always the top players. Whenever a club gets relegated, you know, you've seen the Southampton boys left, the Leicester boys left. You know, you'll always have 3 or 4 that will move on to bring some money into the club.
So that 2-1 victory over Fiorentina, the June 2023, when they won the Conference League.
Yep.
It just seems as though everything's just fallen to hell since then. What should have happened? How should they have built on that?
Well, what they should, you know, Frank's already touched on it. When they won that Conference League trophy, they had a fantastic manager in place called David Moyes. And similar to what I've been saying about Martin is, you know, they should have tapped into David Moyes. They should have given him an extended contract. Say, right, David, look, we're giving you a 5-year contract. We want you to put the foundations in place, similar to what he did at Everton. He was at Everton, the first spell at Everton. He was there for 11 years. And there was a lot of ups and downs. It wasn't all good. There was some, you know, quite a lot of downs, but eventually got them to an FA Cup final. We got them to play in the Champions League, something West Ham have never done. And that's what they should have done. They should have said, right, we've just had a guy won us that first trophy in 43 years. Let's tap into his experience and his knowledge, and let's put a plan in place for the next 5 years, so that in 5 years' time, we now would be 2 years down the line from winning that trophy, and you've got 3 years of the plan to come into play to try and get you into the Champions League. You know, and you know, is it feasible for West Ham to be in the Champions League? Of course not at the moment, but you've got to aim high. You've got to live the dream. Celtic want to play everyone wants to play in the Champions League, so you've got to aim for that, but you've got to have the right manager and the right structure in place to make it happen.
That's an interesting point. If every club in England lived up to the full potential, where would West Ham be? I mean, they're not in that top 6 we always heard about, but you know,
they wouldn't be far away from it. 7th and the top teams in England. I'd listen.
Well, I think that's where they was under Moisey, Frank, when they'd had a couple of seasons. Where they
great! They were top 6. Yeah.
You know, people make a lot about the so-called West Ham way. You know, you guys must have, Frank, you would definitely have heard it. Everyone says, "Well, what is the West Ham way?" And for me, it's very, very simple. You know, my dad, Frankie, you remember my dad. My dad once, I just said to my dad once, I said, "Dad, what's the West Ham way?" And my dad said to me, he said, "Son," he said, "it's very, very simple. He said, we want to play good football. He said, we want to try and finish in the top 10. Every now and again, we want to win a trophy. And depending on what division you're in, you want to beat Tottenham or Millwall. And it's such a simple breakdown of it. But I don't know whether you agree with that, Frank.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's what the West Ham fans feel.
Well, I think the way the club, I mean, the money they're paying for the stadium and all that, there should be money there to bring in. We should have better players, I think.
Are you getting down much? When's the last time you were down there?
I don't because I'm not comfortable.
In the current climate?
I don't like it. I go into the stadium, and the last time I was there, I ended up in a bar because I couldn't watch it. It was so far away, and I just didn't like it. You know, I'd be still watching it on the telly, so I just stayed in the bar.
I don't like you, Frank, who ended up in the bar.
I was going to say, that was a hardship.
Well, there was a few people with me, so it was all right. A few of the supporters, it was good.
I mean, I must have asked you this 10 million times. I'm going to ask you again. Do you still get the proper red carpet treatment when you're down there?
I love it. Yeah, I do. I get down and see them. I don't get down much, but when I go down, the fans are great to us, aren't they, Tony? The fans are.
Yeah.
The fans are different class.
So
I think the fans, like, because it's not been very good recently, the fans love the nostalgic point of it. And obviously our best season was 86 when me and Frank were the two players up front. And when people see me and Frank together as a West Ham fan, they love to just reminisce and tell us how great the season was and all their experiences, which is great for me and Frank.
Did you not have a racehorse as well, you two?
Yeah. When Cottee met McAvennie or something like that, was that what it was?
Cottee McAvennie goal.
Cottee McAvennie goal, that's it.
It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, does it?
I won some money, won once.
He's been put out to graze now, Frank.
I was going to say.
I'm not sure he's running.
He's got a nice paddock with a wee bar in it.
It started at 10 to 1 and finished at 5:15.
Yeah. It got a couple of seconds, didn't it, in that first, and then it get put out and it's got this wee stable with a wee bar and it's got people come round seeing him and all that. Yeah, so it's all right. It's good. It's good fun. I love West Ham. I absolutely adore.
So what have you got lined up for next summer? You were saying there's the 40th anniversary.
Oh no, it's just after January. We've got a few theatres and we've got some of the boys are doing a lot of theatres. When Michael has got the boys doing a lot of things. Obviously, me and Tony are going to be at the mall because we are the two.
So forgive my ignorance in this, but 86, would Trevor Brooking still have been kicking the ball at that point? No, he just retired.
He was retired. Billy Bonds had retired, didn't he, that time? But he was still in the squad.
He was injured. Bill was injured, wasn't he? But Trevor retired, but Bill was injured.
When we had a lead, Billy Bonds would come on, sit in the midfield and just stop it playing. It was great.
Oh, brilliant.
It was good to see him, and he still ran through brick walls, didn't he, Bill? He was nearly 40, I think he was. But he was so incredible.
It was, yeah.
He was incredible. So, yeah, we had a good team, and you know, and it's and we're all coming together. We've got about 8 theatres or something, 9 theatres to do, as well as the
9 theatres, and then we got, as I said, the big dinner we got on the 24th of April, where all the boys are together. There's about 400 West Ham fans coming to the dinner, so. Yeah, it'll be a great night, and I'm sure we'll have a few drinks, and you might end up in the bar for a change, Frank.
Frank, right? Listen, well, that's a definite idea for us. We should do a Let Me Be Frank podcast down in London next year for the 2026. Get a few of the boys round.
Yeah,
do something and
that'll be good.
Maybe
that'll be good. Yeah.
And there seems to be a bit like Celtic. There's a lot of celebrity West Ham fans as well. It seems to be a club that people like associate themselves with. You know, as long as
we've had a few of them. We've had Ray Winston on, who's a great pal of ours, and but also Russell Brand. Russell was he's a great. Listen, I call him a friend. I don't care. He's a good boy, and I like him. So I couldn't give a monkey's what people say. He's never been charged with anything or some. So you've got to be careful with that. I know you've got to be careful what I say. But listen, I like Russell, and he's a big West Ham fan, and he's got claret and blue running through him. So
well,
you know what I mean.
Get him on then.
He's a good boy. I don't know if he's still got a box down there. Is he? Has he still got his? Russell,
I don't think so, Frank. No, I haven't spoken to him for a while. You've got other fans like Danny Dyer and Kieran Knightley. You know, there's plenty of Nick Berry. There's plenty of West Ham fans.
And I tell you,
I know. I'm talking about Kieran Knightley. Do you know a number? You got a number for her? Not for that. To get her on a podcast.
Not going there.
You were friendly with my cousin, Kira Daly. And another big West Ham fan that I would love to get on the podcast is Paul McGinley, and you can discuss golf with him as well. I think we reached out to his management team a couple of times, but we didn't hear back from him. He'd be great. Getting the golfers on in the winter's a good time.
Paul's a great lad and a big West Ham fan, yeah.
Yeah, all right, we'll do that. But Tony, thank you very much for coming on again, Paul, and having a good down memory lane. It's always good.
It's absolutely brilliant.
And I'll catch up with you soon. Yeah, speak to you both soon, boys. Yeah,
absolutely. It's been a joy, and hopefully some West Ham fans, if you're feeling a bit miserable about life, listen to this pair reminiscing about when it wasn't a case of whether they were going to win, it was by how many. Let's get those days back to. I was going to say back to Upton Park, but that ship
sailed. But listen, January and February we're coming to a town near you.
Fantastic.
Down in England.
Well, listen, that's great. Well, look, Tony Cottee, thanks very much for joining us again on Let Me Be Frank, and we will join you all again very soon for another episode of the world famous Let Me Be Frank podcast.
Tony, thanks, pal. Take care.